My name is Rainey Laura Blue Cloud Greensfelder. I grew up here in Nevada County. I was born and raised here. And I also spent part of my childhood on the Mohawk community of Kahnawake in Canada. It's a native community, so I share kind of a dual life between here and there. I live in both worlds a little bit. And I'm currently a captain in the fire service. I'm a firefighter and EMT. And as Elise was saying earlier, women have really gone far in getting an equal place in the workplace, but it's a very, very challenging position to be a woman in the fire service. A lot of challenges. You're often with 20 men all at the same time working together, and that can be quite challenging. As a young person, I think what got me started in my career of activism, my kind of lifelong activism, is this kind of sense of justice and fairness. And I think that all children have this kind of really strong sense of what's fair, and oh, that's not fair. This is fair, this isn't fair. And sometimes your education or maybe your upbringing can rub that sense of fairness out, but I still have this really super strong sense of justice, and I just need to fight for what I believe in and what feels right to me. So I think that has shaped me becoming an activist. And then I have this sense of helpfulness too, and maybe that comes from living with a single mother, just always wanting to help out. And so I've spent a lot of years in my life volunteering for different organizations, locally and internationally. And those two things together, I think, really just shape the fundament of who I am and give me this sense of just going all out, feet first, activism, jumping into whatever it is I am, whether it's into the fire service, which I just joined a few years ago, and just really going for it and wanting to succeed and giving my all to everything that I've done. I started being active in local politics in Nevada City when I was maybe 16 or 17. And at that time, there was a lot of tension between local business owners and youth and the city council. And the business owners didn't want the kids to be hanging out on the sidewalk, and the kids said, oh, well, we belong here too. And the city council proposed an ordinance to ban any kind of loitering. And the citizens of Nevada City said, well, wait a minute, if there's this ordinance, it's going to be enforced unfairly. It's against our civil rights. And so we had a referendum to oppose this city council ordinance. And I remember being at a city council meeting, and one of the council members, unnamed, said, I see the public is here before us today to speak on this issue. However, our minds are made up, and whatever you have to say to us won't change our minds on this. And that just injured my sense of justice. And so I said, well, if the government is not representing the people, then I need to be the government. So when I was 19, I ran for office. I ran for city council in Nevada City, and bear in mind, how did you describe me, as a rabble-rouser? I was a rabble-rouser, and I was also very punk rock. I had a mohawk, I had red and purple hair, and I had some piercings, and wore a lot of black, and some spikes and stuff. And but I was really dedicated to the community and to politics, and I was very serious about this situation. So this became kind of a media issue, and for local media, it got picked up by the Sacramento media, the Sacramento Bee and the News and Review, and then it turned into kind of a national issue, and it was reported in the Associated Press and other syndicated news, and as also was mentioned, I think, on Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! Show. So that was when I was 19, and that was a big deal. I didn't win a seat at that time on the city council, but I did very well. I lost by a narrow margin, and our referendum to beat that ordinance won by a landslide. So that was a really good kickoff to my, confidence as an activist. After that, I moved to Vancouver, British Columbia, and I found this fantastic little institution called the Institute of Indigenous Government. And it's a very, very small school that worked in collaboration with another local community college. And it was all Indigenous students, all Native Americans and Indigenous students from the Americas, and mostly Indigenous staff, although there were some non-Indigenous staff. And it taught us the history of colonialism in the Americas and the history of boarding schools, cultural assimilation, and the loss of land and cultural resources that we've experienced as Native people. And obviously this injured my sense of justice very deeply, and it was actually a very painful time to learn this whole history. And I thought, well, really there has to be something that we can do. There has to be a court that we can take these cases to. We have to be able to fight for our land rights. And I looked through a lot of legal precedents and found that we lost a lot of cases as Native peoples because it's always against the government, and the government wins, just the way it is. And I said, well, there must be a higher body. There has to be an international forum, maybe a world court where Indigenous peoples can take these issues. And I started talking, pardon me, a lot to my professors, and they said, that's a fantastic idea. You really have to get involved. This is great. Go for it, do it. There are people that you can meet. And I had one professor who was a Native woman from Canada, and she really believed in me. And she said, I want you to meet some women from the Indigenous Women's Network, and we'll find a way for you to get there. We'll pay for it, and you can go and meet with them. So I went to New York State, and I met with a group of maybe 30 Indigenous women from North America. And they were all older than me. They were mostly lawyers, judges, different types of activists, community health workers, environmental activists. And they took me under their wing, and they said, if you believe in this, if you want to go for it and take this stuff to the international level, we'll help you and we'll mentor you through the process. And we're really excited that you as a young person are into doing this. So they took me maybe a month later to the United Nations in Switzerland, to the Human Rights Council, and started mentoring me in the process of learning the international legislation that relates to human rights and Indigenous peoples, and learning how to draft legal documents, draft legal declarations, and how to make the governments, how to make the arguments to governments to have the very highest standards of human rights included in these international documents. From there, we went to Africa. We went to South Africa in 2001 to the World Conference Against Racism, and back again in 2002 to the United Nations World Summit on Sustainable Development. And these were amazing experiences for me. The women that I traveled with, I was with the Indigenous Women's Network, and we all traveled together as a group, and they were just, pumping me full of information and inspiration, and it was really a wonderful time in my life. After that point, I got offered a job in Washington, D.C., so I moved to the D.C. area, and I worked for a non-governmental organization there, also working on the implementation of human rights standards for Indigenous peoples, both with extractive industry companies like oil industries, and also with Indigenous peoples, primarily in the Amazon region, who are fighting against encroachment from oil companies on their territories. And after I spent about a year there, I decided I really wanted to finish my bachelor degree, so I got a full tuition scholarship to Columbia University and finished a degree in history. And then came back home for a spell and went out again. But the point actually is not this work, although I think it's absolutely crucial. And it should be noted that there are more than 350 million Indigenous people in the world, and they live perhaps on about 50% of the world's natural resources and places of really important biodiversity. And they have a lot to teach us about sustainable development and sustainable living. And it's really a crucial subject that I would love to talk more about another time, perhaps, I hope. But what I really wanted to say here tonight is that ideas and passions of young people come as little tiny sparks or little seeds. And those seeds are so fragile in young people, and they can easily just burn out and die. But it's our responsibility as women who have weathered different challenges and made our way in the world and have some self-confidence in the world to nurture those seeds of passion in young women, in girls, and in boys, and to provide them with inspiration and the opportunities and the mentorships that will make those little seeds grow up into big trees, and they'll produce more seeds, and those seeds hopefully will get planted somewhere. Because I really, really believe, as other people were saying earlier and in the live broadcast, pardon me, that women have a vital, vital role to play in science, in law, in engineering, in the arts. I mean, women have a lot to contribute, and this voice has to be heard, and it has to be mentored. So it's really my call tonight for all of you to find a way to mentor young women and encourage them to be confident, self-confident, physically confident, intellectually confident, and have confidence in their own dreams to be able to create this kind of sustainable and vibrant world. And that's going back to what the whole format is tonight, is reshaping our future, and that's my personal call of how we're going to reshape our future. So I know I'm not up to time yet, but I have a cold, and I'm going to cut it a little short tonight. And hopefully we'll have a chance to talk about these things in greater depth in the future. Thank you.